Okay, I want to go over the syllabus in more detail now, and you can read over this. Some people it helps them to have their instructor discuss it with them, especially in a hybrid, since we're not meeting face to face on Monday. Here's all of my information. Email is the best way to contact me, either my Gmail or my Baruch mail. My office hours are listed. Here's the course description that is also in Blackboard, so you can see that right off the bat we're critiquing this idea of quote-unquote race relations. That is a very old paradigm that focuses on harmony and getting along. It's a very superficial focus, as I say in this course description, and we're going to challenge all of that. We're talking about racism as a system of oppression. So racism is not just prejudice or bigotry. Anybody can be prejudiced. Racism is about a system of a race-color hierarchy, a system of privilege. Um, so we'll learn about that. We'll learn about how whiteness was created, how the Irish and Italians and Jewish people became white over time and gained privileges associated with that and the complexities of that. We learn about internalized oppression, how people of color internalize self-hatred, internalize racism, and how it divides people of color from each other and European Americans from people of color as well. It is not the purpose of this course to discuss every ethnic group. We don't have time to do that. We will discuss how racism affects groups differently and the ways in which various ethnic groups have been divided from one another. We talk about how people strategically deny the existence of racism and the larger culture of colorblind ideology. So you can read over that. The hybrid course is explained here. Learning outcomes, the learning objectives are given to you here. Oh, let me go back. There's one thing in terms of this race relations perspective. 2 years ago, or maybe it was 3 years ago now, I wrote a grant and brought in two well-known scholars in the field of racism, Eduardo Bonilla Silva, who is professor and chair of sociology at Duke University, and Barbara J. Fields, who's a professor of history at Columbia. And Barbara talked about a book she called Racecraft. So by that, she compares racecraft to witchcraft. So in other words, in our everyday interactions, in the words we use, the words we don't use to describe situations, we magically transform race, we magically transform racism, something the aggressor does, into quote unquote race, which is something the target is. Okay, so racecraft is so some of the words that we might use. We use skin color, minority, race relations. These are all tools, linguistic tools to really deny what the problem is. Racism. The problem is racism, but we don't say that. We say the race issue. So we're transforming racism, something the aggressor does, into race, something the target is. Let me give you an example. She says, black Southerners, people will say, black Southerners were segregated because of the color of their skin. Segregation in that sentence is seen as a property of black people, not something white people imposed on them, but a property of black skin color. It's passive. Nobody did anything to them. It just is. Black Southerners were segregated because of the color of their skin. Skin color does not cause people to be shot, to not get a job. People act. Skin color doesn't. Right? Racism is the problem, not the skin color by itself. But we talk about race more than we do racism. Barbara Fields talked about during the Q&A session an example of a cab not stopping for her. And people would say to her, that cab didn't stop for you because of the color of your skin. There's nothing magical about her skin color that jumps out of her and stops the cab from picking her up or pushes that cab forward so it doesn't stop for her. It's not her skin color. That cab driver has to make a decision, whether it is conscious or not, makes a decision to not stop for her, and that is a result of racism, not skin color. Okay. Like Carter Wilson, who we'll read later this semester, Barbara Field's contribution is looking at human agency behind racism. And so she names the props of racecraft, like race relations, skin color, minority, all these attempts, all these words we use to prevent discussing the real issue, which is racism. Okay, so we'll get more into that as we move more into the semester. The textbook, we don't have one that you have to buy. You don't have to buy a textbook. All of the readings are provided for you in Blackboard in the weekly folders, the weekly materials. So I do have a very high expectation that you're going to read in this course because you don't have to buy anything and you can just go to Blackboard and get everything. Okay. It is very important that you access Blackboard regularly. Course policy, this is what I expect of you. The syllabus is a contract between us, between you and your professor. Do read this over. Um, you'll lose points if you are using electronics, coming to class late, walking in and out of class. I expect you to sit for the 75 minutes that we are in class, just as I stand for 75 minutes. Okay, when I write letters of recommendation, this becomes very important because employers, what they really want to know is my evaluation of you in class. So I've written over 100 letters now, and some of them have been for faculty, but for the ones, most of them have been for students. And what they really want to know, future graduate programs, employers, is not your grade because they can find that out. They want to know from me, how did you behave in class? How did you address the readings? Were you able to work with other people? Were you able to participate in a way that wasn't sort of this negative participation where someone's always trying to dominate the conversation, but were you intelligent? Did you behave responsibly? Are you someone that they can get along with and trust? And that's what I assess. So it's not just important for your grade, but should you ever need letters of recommendation, these are the kinds of things that professors are writing about. In terms of electronics, on the whole, the full-time faculty in my department don't allow the use of laptops, cell phones, and other materials in electronics in their classrooms. It's very distracting. Plenty of studies have now confirmed that it's horrible for your brain to multitask. It's not good for learning. It interferes with student recall, recalling information for exams. And there's a study that just came out. It was covered in the Wall Street Journal and also on NPR about the benefits of writing down notes by hand. Um, because if you're doing it on the computer, you tend to be typing notes verbatim and you're not really thinking about, you're typing everything the instructor says verbatim. But when you write notes out by hand, you have to be more selective and your brain has to be more active because you can't possibly write everything down. And so this is a study conducted by some scholars at Princeton. So what they found is more evidence that this is better for memory recall. So there's lots of reasons for this, and I know students who say that they're going to use their laptops for taking notes only, but it's just too tempting to surf the web, and it's distracting for the classroom, for those sitting around you, and it's very distracting for me as well. So all of those away. Some of the full-time faculty in my department will actually lock the door after a certain time. Students can't come into the class, and that's how they deal with lateness. They'll make you apologize in front of the classroom. I don't use those tactics. What I will do is after class, I do mark down whoever came late. I mark down people using their laptops, electronics, and it will affect your grade. So I'm not going to embarrass you in front of the class, but I do mark you down, and it affects your grade at the end of the semester, and we'll just leave it at that. This is an upper level class, so I don't expect many of those issues. Any classwork that you miss you have to have a documented reason to make it up. Okay, otherwise you'll miss those points. We have in-class writings. These are the requirements. That's what's most important to students. 2 exams, written exams. There will be some multiple choice questions as well. We do informal writings. The typical protocol is that I'll give you a set of questions to think about with most assigned readings. So for Wednesday, when you come to class, you should read those pages in Chapter 1 of Desmond. And I've told you should know what the logical fallacies are. So when I give you a prompt like that, most likely we'll have an in-class writing, and there's going to be a question about those logical fallacies. These are unannounced, so they're like pop quizzes in class. You write out the answer. The key issue here is that you're showing me that you read thoroughly, that you understood the readings, you didn't do just a quick reading. Those are very important for your grades. So even when you get A's on your exams, if you're not doing well in informal writings, you don't get an A in the class because those informal writings are very important in terms of pulling your grade up and down. You also get a point every day that you attend class. All of this gets tabulated into in-class work. I also have a note here on quality participation. Please read that over. Again, talking every time and dominating conversations is not good participation. I do enjoy students who are very excited and they talk very frequently. That's different from someone who dominates. I'm sure you've had them in all of your classes. Please do participate, but pay attention to the quality of your comments and not just the quantity. You can look over the extra credit assignments here. No late extra credit is accepted. It's completely optional. And do go to Blackboard and read over the course calendar. Okay, see you soon.